Welcome to Razorback Stadium on the campus of University of Arkansas, where Mississippi State in Arkansas. 3 o'clock kickoff today. Steve, we're about 90 minutes away. Glad to have you back in town. You just made it. And it's about 11 million degrees warmer than our last two trips up here. So I know for you being on the sidelines, that's a very welcome development. But State's had success the last two trips here. Today, though, this is a kind of a do or die, not just for obviously the Bulldogs on a 4-game streak. Arkansas has lost 5 games. Somebody's going to end a streak today.
It's true, David, and you're right. The circumstances around this game much different than the last couple times Mississippi State's come here. State has not lost in Fayetteville since 2003, and granted, you played a few games there in Little Rock, but State's won 6 of the last 7 meetings, with the Arkansas win coming in 16 in Starkville. 2015 is when we had that great Dak Prescott, Brandon Allen shootout that ended with Beniquez Brown block field goal. 2017, we come down here and State sleptwalked through the ball game, essentially gave Arkansas hope. And then Nick Fitzgerald, Reggie Todd hook up late, and then Nick with a great throw to Dedrick Thomas to win the ball game. Ended up being one of the last ball games before they made a coaching change. This year, different dynamic. State's fighting for their bowl lives, and I think Chad Morris probably coaching for his job.
Well, you talk about making a coaching change. State did that 2 games after defeating the Razorbacks, lost the Egg Bowl, and we're soon without their coach, too. So a couple of second-year coaches in here, all sorts of pressure on both of them. Although realistically, in today's SEC climate, it is tough to see places make a change after 2 years, but the mentality will be totally different for either one coming out of this game. Mississippi State, of course, has showed some flashes at A&M. More there last week, but now still some concerns of the offensive line. Well, we hope Greg Allen plays today. Still kind of curious about Stuart Reese and his situation. Defense really battered by injuries. I did notice that Martin Emerson is back with the cornerbacks today. Cam Dancer is dressed out and warming up, so it looks like he'll play. But still, Coach Bob Shoop has to patch some things together in his secondary.
Yeah, it's true. David, you lose Maury Smitherman for the year, and you lose Cam Dancer last week, and you go on the road at College Station and play 2 freshmen, and then you lose one of them for could be an extended period of time with Jerry and Jones. And so you get Dancer back, and I think in many ways that helps Mississippi State kind of negate what some of the things Arkansas wants to do down the field. They've got some young receivers they're very proud of and had some talent. Hicks, we expect to start at quarterback today, but I don't think it's the only Razorback quarterback we see.
Yeah, I think they expect to play at least 2 and possibly 3 quarterbacks. Last week that Hicks did not start against Alabama. Now they've gone back to him. He began the season. Nick Starkle, of course, and the Jones kid is there as well. Of course, looking at their stats, I think what jumps out about me to Arkansas is they're high in passing yardage, but they're 13th SEC in efficiency, which tells me it's kind of a spray-and-pray approach to offense, which I guess reflects the fact they've got young quarterbacks or rotations at quarterbacks, a bunch of young receivers. So you know what you're getting, but you know that secondary is going to get a lot of tests.
It also means, too, they've been behind a lot. And, they nearly came back and won the ball game against Texas A&M. They have some firepower in small doses. In a game like this, and especially with the revenge factor, State won 52-6 last year, and a lot of Razorbacks kind of raised an eyebrow at that final touchdown on 4th and 13. Granted, you had the backup quarterback in, but you throw a touchdown pass there. They have not forgotten about that. And people say, well, Chad Morris shouldn't need that. I think you use whatever motivational tools you need, and rubbing somebody's nose in it is one of the ways to get them going. And so, David, I think they're going to come out, try to establish the passing game. State also gave up some plays last week in the option game with Kellen Mond. We could see K.J. Jefferson from Arkansas this week. He's a guy that can certainly run that option game.
I believe Arkansas also has a patchwork offensive line, from what I understand, and I guess some of their skill players, in fact, may not be available today, too. So it's kind of a who shows up. But, Steve, is that not the story of the game? State, in their last 3 SEC contests, or even during their 4-game losing streak, has just not showed up the first quarter. 1 touchdown, and that only after being behind 3 scores at Auburn in a first quarter. They have not produced but a couple of first downs on the first 2 series in all these games combined. How can the Bulldogs change that tune and get off to not just a better start, but a truly fast and productive start?
Well, one of the things we'll go ahead and give them, the Dogs Bite Gene's Page 247 guarantee right now. You're going to see some new wrinkles on offense early today. We kind of mum's the word. There will be some new wrinkles early in this ballgame and try to jumpstart this offense, because we know, David, as you mentioned, State has been ahead or tied after first quarter, and all 3 wins have been behind in every loss. So you've got to get out of the gate. And this is a team, too, an Arkansas and Mississippi State team, kind of their collective psyche is pretty fragile. Whoever gets a little bit of a lead and creates some adversity could run away with the ballgame.
The other factor consider that now in a year and a half plus, Joe Moorhead's teams have 1 SEC road win. Of course, that was a dominating show at the Egg Bowl last year, but road games have not been friendly. Offense, again, I think have scored something like 4 touchdowns in first quarters on the SEC road games. So this is a game where they have to come out and throw that first punch. They've got to establish tone. And as the offensive players we talked to admitted, they've got to do it to help their defense out and give them some confidence to play with the lead.
It's true. The defense at times has played well. Last week was not one of those moments. Played really well against Tennessee, played pretty well against LSU at times, just kind of wore down in the ball game. If they can bring that level of intensity today and get some help from the offense, because State can't afford to get behind in this ball game. Rakeem Boyd, one of the best running backs in the Southeastern Conference. Arkansas is going to run the football should they get a lead. They're going to try to get him established. If State can make them one-dimensional, I think you've got a chance to probably put the ball game away. But that's this first quarter, David, as you know, it's going to be everything.
So that's our pregame report here from Fayetteville. Steve will be heading down to the sidelines in a bit, and I'll be watching the press box. We have our live thread going as well. We'll be updating what position groups are working out, first, second team, and pick the offensive line. We'll be watching the quarterbacks as they warm, but all 4 are here today. We'll be curious to see if anything happens and how they're shuffled in and rotated, because Arkansas certainly expects to do that as well. So bottom line, 2 teams in beyond desperate need of a victory. If the Bulldogs are going to go bowling, they have to win today. Well, same thing for Arkansas because they're 2-6 at this point, but this is do or die situation with the Bulldogs. What will you be watching for foremost from your sideline position, Steve?
I'm going to be looking for a surprise early in the ball game. I'm going to be looking for a surprise.
Okay, we're dropping a little hint there, but we're not quite sure enough to go with it yet, but stay tuned to the board. I just want to see a team that wants to play ball and wants to win, because I think the confidence factor to me is what really is going to matter most.
Kylan Hill could have a huge game today. Arkansas was really good in the middle, very soft on the edges. You get outside with him and get him going as physical as he could be. This could be a big ball game for him and a way for him to kind of, he had a big game last week, but this could kind of reestablish him as one of the best running backs in the Southeastern Conference.
So let's look for that running game to go with Garrett Schrader and Kylan Hill. And after talking to Coach Briner this week, do not be surprised if there's not a role today also for Tommy Stevens. But we'll let this game play out because that's what those guys are paid the big bucks for. We'll be talking after the game, hopefully after a Bulldog victory. But regardless, you'll be hearing from us then. For Steve Robertson, this is David Murray.